What's up, guys? It's your girl T, looking like a bizarro version of myself from my last video. I swapped out my top, my lip, and my lid so it would at least kind of look like it's a different day, even though it's not. And we are talking about the Pat McGrath Skin Fetish Sublime Perfection Foundation. There was no way I was going to remember that without a cheat sheet. This foundation just launched on Friday at Sephora. I'm not sure if it launched the same day on her own website or if it was slightly earlier. But either way, can we talk about this packaging though? I know, the ghetto. Listen, don't be hating on my sample, okay? I didn't purchase the foundation because the MSRP is 68 American dollars for a 35 ml bottle. 35 mils works out to be just under 1.2 ounces, and I recommend with this, or honestly, any foundation, getting a sample first if you can. Rather than purchase the foundation and then have to return it because I picked the wrong shade or I just don't like the formula, it saves both money and environmental waste to just get a sample first. Because if I love it, I can still buy it and I can make a much more informed purchase in doing so. Rather than read you the same 8 paragraphs of product claims and PR literature you've probably already seen in the other YouTube reviews on this product, I will give you the broad strokes. It claims to be long wearing, sheer to medium, and it comes in 36 shades. I personally see no inherent value in the number of shades with this or any other foundation. 36 seems like a perfectly fine number. What matters to me is the distribution of shades within that spectrum, as well as the undertones, and considering that Pat McGrath Labs is not only a makeup industry legend-owned brand, but a Black woman-owned brand, I trust her to come through in the clutch. In other words, I wasn't expecting a bunch of whack gray undertones with this launch. Bearing in mind that Pat McGrath is a makeup professional, I was wondering if perhaps that's why you get the 5 mils more than what you would get in a standard foundation, which is normally 30 mils. Perhaps she's keeping in mind pro artists who would want to have this in their kits. On the other hand, if you're stocking a $68 per bottle foundation in your kit, even with a pro discount, you must be booked and busy because you balling out. Damn! I, however, am not balling like that, which is why I went with a sample, and I have shade 22. The way I settled on this shade was I actually moseyed over to the Cover Effects stand in the store, grabbing a quick dibble-dabble of my go-to, I guess you could say, holy grail concealer from that brand and putting it on my hand. I already know what shade in that brand matches me perfectly, so once I had that, I was able to swatch the Pat McGrath foundations against that and then find the closest approximation to that in her range. I do this all the time. That's just a little shopping tip that might help you the next time you're trying to find something from a new brand where maybe you're not sure what your shade is. If you can, find a brand you already use that has a shade that you know matches you really well and use that to find the correct shade in the new brand. Anyway, I do have 2 days worth of wear, including it being on my face right now. I wore it yesterday with a almost bare but not really bare face. The consistency of this foundation is really thin, borderline runny, so I decided to go with a synthetic brush to apply it. I figured a synthetic brush would be less likely to absorb a bunch of the product before it actually made it onto my face. And if you can see with my little sample jar, you can see how the product has kind of been sloshing around in here. I was able to get enough for my entire face just using, once I popped this open, what was actually in the lid rather than having to dip into the actual pot itself. So I feel that just a few dots of this on your face can get you pretty solid medium coverage. And I imagine you'd get even more coverage if you applied it and blended it with just your fingers, which is probably how Ms. McGrath does it, because I've seen lots of videos of her applying makeup to models, and she is a big finger blender, a la one of my YouTube favorites, Sandra Deluxe, who incidentally is in the campaign for this foundation launch, so shout out to Sandra, congratulations. She's not watching, but I wanted to say it anyway. And here's a side-by-side where you can see the foundation freshly applied compared to my face with just my skincare and my primer. And everything I used for my makeup from both yesterday and today is listed in the description box. I felt that the foundation actually looked really nice. I was happy with the shade match, and I also felt like it looked extremely skin-like, one of the more undetectable foundations I've tried, at least upon a fresh application. I didn't use any mattifying or setting powders. I just used my normal finishing powder as well as a brightening powder under my eyes to set my concealer. Yesterday's wear test was a 10-hour wear test, but really it was a wear gauntlet. It was 90 degrees here in LA, and I am a schwitzer. I was was sweating bullets. I went to a movie, I was running around town running errands in Burbank, and it's even hotter up in the valley, running all kinds of errands, so I was pretty sure that by lunchtime there couldn't possibly have been any makeup left on my face. When it's that hot out, my greatest fear is that my brows will just melt off and just create a mustache right above my lip. So here you can see the 6-hour check-in where I had been sweating pretty much 6 hours straight. But I had done no other touching up. I hadn't added any more powder or anything. And here you can see how my face was looking at 10 hours. So that's 4 more hours of wear. At this point, I hadn't really been running around town. I had maybe stepped out to walk the dog, but not too much else in those last 4 hours. So no other touching up. It was just kind of wearing away as it would do without the excessive sweating that had happened in the previous 6 hours. I personally don't think like I looked horrible. I just feel like it looked like a lot of the makeup was gone, which is fair. I don't think any makeup except for maybe stage makeup is likely to stay on throughout that much profuse sweating. As you see me now filming this video, I've been wearing the foundation for about 7 hours. I have been at home, but it is very hot in here. It's another hot day, and I can't have any fans or anything like that on because I'm filming and it will mess up my audio. Today's wear test is a lot shorter. You know, we're only at the 7-hour mark, but I do think it's been useful for me to see how it holds up under, 1, less severe conditions where I'm not necessarily profusely schwitzing, and 2, to also see how it holds up with more of a full-on beat. And I have to say, I was not liking how this foundation was looking around the 3 or 4 hour mark. By that time today, I was busy editing my Quentin Tarantino Once Upon a Time in Hollywood movie review, shameless plug, it's right here. And when I stepped into my bathroom, I noticed that my makeup looked very cakey and makeup-y. In particular on the sides of my nose here, where my pores are generally a lot larger, as well as in my lady mustache area. Just not cute. Here's a look at my face from just a couple hours ago. This is around the 5-hour mark. This is before any touch-up at all. And hopefully you can see what I mean, where the makeup has really started to look like makeup in a way that it did not when it was freshly applied. Perhaps the primer I used today isn't as compatible as the one I used yesterday. I don't know. The one I used yesterday is the Tarte smoothing one, which I do like a bit better, so it wouldn't surprise me. And as you're seeing me now, this is how the makeup is holding up after blotting my face twice in the past 2 hours or so, basically to just refresh before filming, as well as reapplying some more of my finishing powder. At this point, I'm definitely ready to get this off of my face. I don't think that that is a knock against this foundation in particular, but any makeup that you've been wearing for a very hot, sweaty, oily day, I'm pretty much ready to claw my face off by hour 4, regardless of what foundation it is. I am interested to see how well this wears as I continue to play with it with different primers, because I have to reiterate, I'm really not too keen with how it looks today. So I'm really happy to have plenty left to experiment with it a couple more times, because I really do think that this has the potential to be a great foundation. I'm just not sold yet, especially at $70 a bottle. And considering I have other base products I like that don't punk me so much that I end up looking like I walked straight out of Madame Tussauds by hour 4, I'm very much on the fence about whether this is worth it if I have to be really careful about what I wear underneath it or on top of it. So I'll have to do quite a bit more testing before I decide if Ms. McGrath is going to be getting my 70 bucks. I mean, make no mistake, a lot of y'all know that I do love me some luxury makeup, but I think with the emergence of brands like Natasha Denona and even Pat McGrath, things have gotten really out of hand with a lot of these prices. YouTube culture has somehow normalized eyeshadow palettes being $125, $130, $230. And to be perfectly candid, when people started justifying the price of like Natasha Denona's eyeshadow palettes by breaking down the cost per gram, that was when I started saying, you know what, I'm not sure if this YouTube makeup scene is for me. I don't know, I guess there's just a fine line between luxury and insanity. Anyway, that is going to do it. Those are my thoughts on the Pat McGrath foundation thus far. I hope this was helpful. If you want to see Bizarro T in almost the same outfit but in a different color scheme, check this video right here. That's my review of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Let me know if you have already tried the Pat McGrath foundation and what your thoughts are. And other than that, I don't really have anything else to say except never trust anyone with a Morphe code. Bye-bye.
That's some nappy-headed hose there, I'm going to tell you that now.